Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. So, without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic... Who the hell is this? What the hell? Who the hell do you think you are, interrupter? Where did you go? Who the hell is this? What the hell is your name, son? Who do you think you are, huh? I'm John Cena. Oh, really, John Cena? So what quality do you think you have coming out here to interrupt me announcing this podcast, huh, big guy? Huh?
Ruthless aggression.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
No.
And Cuz.
What's up?
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the Ruthless Aggression Era. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P. 2019 and you can click on Linktree. You can find us in several spots, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube. What else did you put us on yet, cuz? There's some new ones, right?
Stitcher is
another one. There you go. Guys, this is a fun time because from my understanding, there's going to be a fantastic new DVD out about the Ruthless Aggression Era. And we're pretty excited about it. That's why we chose this topic today, right?
There's by the time you hear this, it should already be out. It's actually going to be a documentary on the network. But it should release. We're recording this on what? The Valentine's Day, huh? Oh,
That's
man.
right.
Yeah. We're all in trouble for that one.
I want to say it's going to release this weekend, if not next weekend. I could be wrong. But by the
This
time
Sunday.
you hear this, it'll be...
It's this Sunday.
Oh, yeah, so this Sunday. So by the time you hear this episode, it'll be out. And, yeah, I mean, so we kind of wanted to be topical with it since WWE was putting out a documentary on it. We figured we would cover it as well because it's kind of... It just recently, to me, I started watching it on social media, being brought up more and more. For a long time, it wasn't talked about. And then now people are kind of speaking fondly, just like with everything as time goes on. I don't view the Ruthless Aggression era as a classic era because in my mind, like 1987 was yesterday, just because that's how old we're getting. That's how fast time's going. But it actually was a long time ago, the Ruthless Aggression era. So a lot of people that became fans during that era are now looking back, and that's their Rockin' 80s or that's their Attitude Era. That's how advanced in time we're getting, guys, is like, you know, the Attitude Era now is becoming ancient. You know, I mean, it's like ancient, way back in the Attitude Era. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to talk like that.
Yeah, we're talking about 2002 to 2008. I mean, now the decade has been over, or sorry, the era has been over for over 12 years. And it started, gosh, just under 18 years ago. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about the time frame, you know? And as we all know, right, this is a cool down period between the Attitude Era and that Monday Night Raw War era. So this is basically what happens is we know at this point WCW is dead. It's dead as dead can be.
Dead.
DED. Stupid. But, you know, so June 24th of 2002, Vince McMahon actually names the era the Ruthless Aggression during a promo on Raw.
I heard it. Years ago, I took on every wrestling promoter throughout North America. I kicked every one of their asses. And why? Not because I was an asshole. No. Because of ruthless aggression.
And there's a lot going on here, right? A lot of the big boys are taken off for several reasons. The Rock's going towards Hollywood. We know Austin's in-ring career is pretty much winding down. And then you've got all this influx of new talent coming in, especially with ECW and WCW, because like you said, where are they going to go? The funny thing about it, though, Jess, you correct me if I'm wrong, the really big names that you would think were coming didn't come because they had all those contracts that still had to be worn out, right? So
That's right.
It wasn't the names you would expect that you saw on WCW Nitro every single week. So you're getting names which we all know now, but they weren't as big as they were then. So you're talking, people like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Booker T was probably the biggest one, right? And then you got the guys that are still large guys, like physical, but they weren't top of the roster yet, like John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Edge, Shelton Benjamin, RVD was there. It's funny when you think about this time, John Cena was a mid card. You know,
I don't even know. Like when I look at all those names, I'm like, how was this not the greatest wrestling era ever? When I look at just those names, not even the ones that were there from the Attitude Era, which Triple H was still there.
Yeah.
Steve Austin, his in-ring career ended at WrestleMania of 03, which is Mania 19. The Rock was still there, and then you just named that whole slew of people that I'm like, holy shit! Like I don't. Where is there a bad name in there? Benoit, Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Booker T, John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Edge. Shelton Benjamin might be the weakest, but it's a crime that he is the weakest. and RVD, like, fuck. Like, I don't even know. Is there a bad name in that bunch? Like, and I didn't even talk. We're going to talk about it later, but I didn't even talk about Lesnar. I didn't even talk about, we're going to talk
Angle and Jericho and all
Angle's still there and Jericho's there. And, like, it's crazy. Like, and I'm going to be honest, I wasn't, I'm going to choose my words carefully.
You better.
I hate I wasn't super fond of the Ruthless Aggression era because I was still suffering a big hangover at the time. I'm talking about at the time.
Yeah.
I was still suffering a big hangover from the Monday Night War Attitude Era. I mean, it was so vicious and like the competition and everything and like it was craziness and just the way 2001 was. And, it was like, when it all started coming down and it had to, you would think that the promotion that won the war would just still ride off into the sunset, putting up record numbers. But of course, when competition goes away, ratings are going to go down naturally. And it started to happen here. So I was a little bit more of like a numbers guy. And I was a little bit more of like, Raw slipping a little bit or whatever, especially as we got into like 03, where the big thing about 03 was WrestleMania 19 was a great WrestleMania.
Yes.
And if you look at all the names on WrestleMania 19, you should, this buy rate's going to be huge, but it was really like the second WrestleMania after the buyout happened. 2001 is when WCW was bought. WrestleMania 18 was kind of mainly known for Hulk and The Rock. It was kind of a one-match show or two-match show. There was a couple good matches on there. But Mania 19 had like the Hulk and Vince payoff, The Rock and Austin final match, Lesnar being the new guy, dethroning Kurt Angle. It had Guerrero on there, Mysterio, Benoit, Undertaker was on there. I mean, Booker T against Triple H. I go on and on. But for some reason, the buy rate for 19 wasn't that big. So big, in fact, a little side note, is that Hulk kind of left the promotion for a couple months because he was so pissed off about his WrestleMania 19 payday, as Hulk usually does. So him and his beer can penis went somewhere else.
There you go.
That's what I was going to say.
So calm down, Dave. Are we talking facts? If we're talking facts, we got to bring the beer can penis into stuff. You know what I mean?
Here we go.
It's like Hulk's little partner. You know what I mean? Like it's always coming.
Penis
around.
aggression era, brother.
It's on the back of his Harley with him or in his pocket. Either way, a really big pocket. But so like 19 with all those big names and how good it was, Jericho and Michaels at 19. Like, so the whole card was fucking stacked. But it's been kind of known that it didn't put up the buy rate that they thought it would. So it really shows that the lack of competition, because Vince bought everything in sight, does hurt. It doesn't even matter how many good names you have. I'm not saying they were doing, oh my God, god awful business in 2003, but I mean, like, they were trying to figure stuff out. And I know, Dave, you're going to get into a certain split we're going to talk about.
Sure.
But they had to do it in this era for the reasons that we're talking about, because it's so goddamn loaded.
Well, the thing is competition breeds ratings, right? We know that. And at this point, Vince killed everybody. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, there's independent, promotions out there, but that's not even the same thing of what we're even talking about, right? So, so what Vince has to do, and honestly, in hindsight, it's not a bad idea if they just stick with some certain things, but Vince decides like, well, let's create our own competition, right? And that's where Vince has to define both Raw and SmackDown as separate promotions. So, especially when you've got so much talent too, it's really not a bad idea. There was so much influx of talent from WCW and ECW coming in that Vince created what they called the first brand split, where each brand would have their own separate rosters. And at this point, they had their own separate champions, I believe, with the exception of the WWF championship at the time.
Well,
right?
no, that was the weird thing is like the WWE Universal Championship was won by Brock Lesnar in SummerSlam of 2002. And shortly after that, before they even did the brand extension, Stephanie McMahon was kind of watching over SmackDown and Bischoff was watching over Raw. So they were, of course, feuding with each other. And then I remember distinctly a particular episode of Raw where Lesnar was leaving in the limo with Stephanie and Paul Heyman, and Bischoff coming out going, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And I don't know if it was she said the announcement or Heyman or Lesnar, but one of them said, "I'm just going to SmackDown. It's better placed. This Universal Championship is going to be exclusive only on SmackDown."
Shut up. You know, I'm just curious. You're right. Tonight is a historic night on Raw, and I couldn't miss it. But Triple H is the #1 contender for what?
What do you mean for what? For the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. You know the deal. The champion wrestles on both shows.
No, Eric. It's the champion's prerogative which show he wrestles on, and I happen to pay Brock Lesnar a whole lot of money to be an exclusive to SmackDown. So you can watch us Thursday night. Let's go, guys. Oh, but one other thing, Eric. You know, tonight...
Wait a minute.
Triple H, you may recognize this world championship because you were the last man to officially wear it. It's been worn by some of the greatest champions in the history of this industry. And now, Triple H, it will be again, because, ladies and gentlemen, your new world champion, Triple H!
And this is an historic moment.
So after that, it forced them to bring the big gold belt, the old NWA Heavyweight Championship, out of retirement.
And who
they
got
called
that
it
belt?
the World. That's when they developed the World Heavyweight Championship, not the WWE or WWF, the World Heavyweight Championship, which instead of having a tournament for it, and Triple H was like the lead heel on Raw at the time, Bischoff just fucking handed it to Triple H. I think why I don't remember this period so fondly is because I remember for like 2003 and 2004, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but SmackDown was fucking heads and shoulders better than
SmackDown
Raw.
was the best.
It really was.
I think the best
Raw
show.
was fucking terrible. Raw was
through the
putting
whole
on good
Ruthless
wrestling.
aggression. Honestly.
Yeah, pretty much. And Raw was putting on good wrestling matches, but
Yes.
SmackDown had great storylines and fucking killer
wrestling.
character development and killer wrestling matches because Paul
Best
Heyman
matches.
was one of the top. Paul
Well,
Heyman was one of the head writers.
I was gonna say, Paul Heyman's. I might get my ass kicked for this one, but Paul Heyman's best work, in my opinion, may not be ECW in itself. It might be this time on SmackDown.
It is. It's this
Well,
time.
because he went to the big time and he showed that he could do it. I mean, I think, that's
And
a
he
huge
took
achievement.
he took talent that quite frankly nobody else wanted, with the exception of a few guys. Of course, you want Brock. Brock's big, but he made the Big Show look like the big like a
Nathan
big
Jones,
giant beast
Matt
again.
Morgan, all those guys.
I will
Yeah.
still say to this day, nobody has used the Big Show better than Paul Heyman.
Oh yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
At
And
all.
it was during this era. And then at that time too, I believe you still had Angle on. Yeah, you did have Angle on because they had matches
Angle.
with Brock and Angle that were some of the
And
drag down
also
badass
again,
matches.
correct me if I'm wrong. I remember A-Train being
Yes.
a decent threat
he
to
was.
Brock
He
Lesnar's
was.
title at
Yeah.
the time.
That's when Brock.
Because it was like
became the-
A-Train and the Big Show were like a team, kind of. They were like partners or whatever. And like, it's just ridiculous about how Paul Heyman knew what to do with giants and knew what the basic dynamic between what a face and a heel should be. Like, and he knew Brock Lesnar. He's liked Brock Lesnar for a long time. He just understood him and knew how to use him. It's like, God, like, I just remember this period. It was so bittersweet for me because I thought Raw was so terrible for the most part during Ruthless Aggression. And
Well,
SmackDown was so
they
good.
were slow on the upkeep. Heyman knew what to do, and Heyman already had an idea. And Heyman would be like, "Oh, you don't want that guy?" He would kind of play his cards close and go, "Well, I'll take him on my show.
I think the head
I
writer-
got something for him." You know,
I want to say the head writer of Raw, wasn't it Brian Gershowitz or something like that?
God, I don't
Who's
even
actually
remember.
not bad. Brian Gershowitz was decent. But he just wasn't a Paul Heyman. He just wasn't.
yeah.
I mean, Raw was
That's
still good.
I still believe to this day that's
And
Heyman's
it would
masterpiece.
ultimately actually fuck Paul Heyman because even though he was doing really well, like he clashed with Vince constantly behind the scenes because Vince is Vince. And it led into, I don't want to steal your thunder, Dave,
You're
but
fine.
it led into 2005 where some other brand kind of got revitalized because of the fact that Vince didn't want to lose him, but Vince got sick and tired of him because even though Paul Heyman was killing it on SmackDown, the ratings were great, the storylines were incredible, all the matches were awesome, I think Vince he doesn't like talk back. He doesn't like pushback. So like Paul Heyman challenged him all the time and Vince hated it. So that kind of shoots down the theory of people like, no, Vince loves, when you're against him or whatever. I'm like, maybe Paul Heyman was a little bit aggressive, but I do recall almost every time that somebody kind of goes against Vince, he finds a way to tone him down or get rid of him. Like it's always been a Vince thing.
Yeah, some of those exceptions are with talent. I mean, it's usually the talent that can get away with that. But we're talking about people. We're talking about guys in the back trying to. That doesn't fly. I don't care what anybody says. And I've been a part of environments like that. If you're a sales guy in a certain place, they tend not to mess with the sales guys because if you fuck with them and they do shitty, that's your fault because you got in their head, right? So you leave them alone. You leave the talent alone. That's what they say. Yeah. But the people behind the talent, they get fucked with all the time. It's just the way it is, man. Yeah. Like they get tinkered with. It's always their fault. They're assholes. They disagree with everything that I try to do. And disagreement, quite frankly, is probably some of the best things that would come down in an environment, especially like that or work environment, as long as it's healthy discussion. But I think the problem is it's always unhealthy. It's always poison in those environments. And unfortunately, Heyman had vision, and Vince's vision is almost always different from everybody else's. Unless he could take credit for it indirectly later. So, which he's done, but no fault of his. I mean, the coolest thing would be like, wow, this is working. Do what you do, Paul. I'll stay out of your way for a while until I don't like it. But Vince just can't do that. He can't. That's his biggest weakness. He can't just lay off it. He has to stick his finger right in the middle of the potato salad. That's what he does.
That's our Vince.
I rub my thumb in there good and hard, man.
God, geez. What's happening?
So in 2005, WWE actually releases a DVD set of the rise and fall of ECW, right? It did so well that RVD started pushing Vince McMahon to bring back ECW for this one-time reunion show called ECW One Night Stand.
Oh, fine. Yeah, it was probably that annoying too. It wasn't like anything like a total professional like business presentation. It was like Vince would get out of the limo to come into the office in the morning, and he'd be like, "Oh, hey Vince," like he just happens to be there, and Vince is like, "Oh, hey Rob," and he's like, "What about ECW? What do you think? It's doing well, right?" Like, and every fucking day, like Vince will be like, "Oh, finally alone in my office." Oh, someone's calling me. Hello, hey buddy. Fuck, like it's just like everywhere. Like RVD's everywhere.
He's in the shower, and all of a sudden, he just smells fucking ganja coming in the bathroom.
Vince is all do like scrubbing his balls and everything. He's like, "Hey buddy, do you want me to get that for you?" And he's like, "Oh fuck, Rob, no." Like, okay, fine. I'll revitalize ECW. Fine.
He agreed over at a joint.
Yeah,
they had a joint, and they talked.
And in the process, we know that he gives Heyman full control of the pay-per-view for One Night Stand. And on June 12th, 2005, that pay-per-view took place. It was a massive success.
This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE. This, my friends, is ECW.
So good that in June of 2006, WWE ran a second ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view and then used that to launch a weekly ECW TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel. Now, here's where it gets, Jess's notes are very brief here, but it says ultimately it was a failure. But it was a failure because, quite frankly, someone had to, once again, stick his thumb in there. And fuck it all up. I mean, and there were some other problems. Someone didn't show up for a show for some god awful reasons. You know what happened. I won't explain
it. You start the toothless aggression era.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Well, that and also too, they built the whole brand around RVD, and RVD and Sabu got popped for. RVD had plenty. He had plenty of marijuana on him.
Like a pound.
So that's bad. Yeah. You got the Chris debacle.
They did a whole thing. The 2006 One Night Stand, RVD beats Cena for the WWE Championship, and simultaneously wins the long vacated ECW Heavyweight Championship. And then they were gonna kind of strap the rocket on RVD for a while, and he decides to fucking get popped with all that shit in his car. I mean, unfortunately stuff like that just like. When we scream, push this person, and we do, and something dumb like that happens, Vince just goes back to everyone going, I fucking told you so. I need my squeaky clean Cenas. I need them. Because they won't fuck with me. They won't.
He's not wrong.
I will not wake up in the fucking morning and see, this person busted, Cena busted for, enough marijuana where they can bust him with an intent to sell, fucking charge. And it's like, or enough cocaine, to fucking.
I needed to get through the night,
Boston
bro.
up for a day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a pound, bro.
Exactly.
It won't last me all night.
Bro. I got fucking irritable joints, bro. But yeah, so it's this whole era was so. When 2005 hit and they first did that ECW special, I just remember I was super stimulated as a wrestling fan because there was another reason in 2005 that we will talk about later. But just briefly, like, I felt that WrestleMania 21, first of all, I loved WrestleMania 21. To me, WrestleMania 21 is in my top 5 because they did so many things right. Like Hulk got put in the Hall of Fame. They paid tribute to him. The first ever Money in the Bank ladder match took place. They opened up the fucking show with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. We'll talk about another particular match later. I don't want to give away, but the rise of Batista and Cena was so noteworthy that I was like, wow, we only had to wait like 3 or 4 years for another boom period. I was convinced, like, because Batista was everywhere and Cena was everywhere, and they were so white hot, both those guys.
Yes.
Batista now, taking out the champion. Batista, Batista ball. Can Batista
But I feel that Vince kind of mishandled them afterwards, mainly because Batista got injured a little while after he won the title at WrestleMania 21. And so Vince, I think, lost a little faith in him. And Cena kept chugging along. So much, in fact, that Vince is like, look, I'm done fucking putting, my faith in some of these people, and they let me down. For whatever reason, Batista, it wasn't his fault. He got injured, but Vince was just kind of like, I need a guy that I can depend on, that's squeaky clean, or whatever. And so he rode Cena. And it was about 2005, 2006, where Cena starts getting booed. Half the arena starts booing him. And that sucked because I would say, no, sorry, it was 06, 07 that starts happening. And I think it sucked because I think that's when the whole, when we see Roman push down our throats now, it's, they're trying to Cena us. That's when Cena became a thing. So to me, Cena took the sting out of the Ruthless Aggression era because Vince was shoving him so hard down our throats. And I get why he did. Mr. Dependable, right? Mr. fucking, he hurt his elbow. He's going to be out for 8 months. Then 2 months later, he's fucking back. Like, he's fucking Robo Cena. So I understand why it happened, but unfortunately, the mid to end of the Ruthless Aggression era was marred by people starting to get sick of John Cena, and half the arena would start to boo him, and it became a thing. Yeah. And then it just, I hated all that because I'm like, this is a downhill slope, and look where we are now. And that all started back here in like 05, 06, 07 with the shoving of Cena down our throat. But at the beginning of 05, Cena was super white hot, and so was Batista. And I thought, well, the brand extension just fucking worked. Like, in my mind in 05, I was like, instantly, boom, how'd you do it, Vince? You're a fucking genius. Cena's going to run SmackDown as WWE champion. Batista's going to run Raw as World Heavyweight champion. Holy shit. And then maybe at that year's Mania or the next year, they'll fight or whatever. Like, there's going to be, like, he did it. Wow. And then it just fizzed out. It just never, again, like I said, Batista got injured. The new talent that he brought in there, what's that Hassan guy? I always forget his name. Dave brought it up a couple episodes ago.
Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah.
Muhammad Hassan.
That fizzed out, and you could tell Vince was trying to push that. Heidenreich was a big piece of shit. Carlito, Chris Masters, they bring all these young guys in, and we started to like them. And then because Vince I have to initiate them. I have to break them down and build them up and all that. And like, they just they fizzed out. So it sucked because while all those good names, that big list of names that Dave just read earlier was so like, how can this be an odd era? This was fucking great. Like it was.
And by the way,
hard.
you know, as Cuz said earlier, almost every match was, you know, when this is one of the few eras where, at least from what I recall, and you're watching a lot of SmackDown at this point because Raw just couldn't compare. But if you watch the SmackDown, you know, just a SmackDown live event, not even a pay-per-view, there wasn't a bad match in there. Like everything was what they call that night off. Everybody just flowed. Everything was good. The storylines were great. There was, you know, with the era before that, even when they were in competition with WCW, there was a lot of shit. We talk about that a lot. There was a lot of shit underneath. Austin was so hot it didn't matter, right? So The Rock was so hot that it didn't matter. As long as those guys were on top and they're trading off accolades, nobody gave a shit about a birth of a hand. Nobody cared. They're like, okay, whatever. Commercial break. It's all good. I'll go get a beer.
Yeah.
Right? And I know Austin's coming on.
And I think we forget that's how big The Rock and Austin truly were.
Yeah, of course.
And then we had those guys together, and it's like, wow, like
together.
You know, it was
the trouble here is that there wasn't a bad match on any card, and storylines were good, but there was never someone that reached that particular accolade ever again. I mean, that's it. You know, Hogan and Macho is up at that level, right? Hogan Andre's stratosphere, you know, situations, but you know, Flair has his moments as well. But this is the last time you really had two guys on top that can carry just carry an entire federation and have the whole world looking at them through the tube.
Yeah, after it fizzed out and the whole Cena started getting shoved down our throat, and Batista kind of got, I don't want to say phased down. He won the title when he came back from his injury, but it was never with the push that he got when he turned on Triple H and kind of became his own. And like, it was never the same, even though Batista's very popular. And I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think all that,
course.
But at the same time, like, it could have been so much bigger. I think it was a combination of Vince getting scared and also Vince. Yeah. By this time he was married to the whole, you like the brand. And that's it. I'm never going to let one wrestler get so much power like Hulk did or Austin did. I can't do that anymore because I'm burned every time. Like, so I think that, unfortunately, that's what, to me, hindered that whole 2005 almost re-sparking of like a boom period, because I felt it. I mean, Cena was on major news publications. So was Batista. Batista's an impressive looking motherfucker. And so is Cena. And I was just like, oh my God, like they have two of them now. Holy shit. Like, how did he do it? You know, 2005 was only a couple years, like I said, removed, or 3 years removed from the whole Monday Night War Attitude Era. How the fuck did he do it? And then, Carlito comes in and like, he's getting over a little bit. And, you know, people are responding to him. Chris Masters is starting to do well. And it just it's weird. And Raw, kind of like I said, was sort of soft this whole time. Raw was, because Triple H was this heel champion on Raw, kind of holding the Bookers down, Booker T's down, and you know, all that. So it was just really odd.
And by the way, Carlito is still over pretty much wherever he goes. He's that good.
Yeah, like, it's stupid. I don't know.
Carlito's amazing.
Like, he had an attitude in the back. I'm like, well, I think he had an attitude in the back because, you know, you guys tried to fucking haze him a little bit. You tried to, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
like,
they did. You could tell.
You know,
he'd already been wrestling for years, by the way. He'd been all over the world, that guy. It's
like,
I know he was young, but still.
It's like Vince forgot what he used to do back in the 80s was he would steal from the territories. And right when he got those people, he would probably slap a new coat of paint on them, like, you know, a new character or whatever, but he would push them. Because he knew, like, oh yeah, I got him. You know, we make fun of Dusty being the polka dots, but Dusty was in high profile feuds.
He was over.
He was in high profile feuds with the Boss Man, with Macho Man, with DiBiase. Those are names that people know, and that those feuds meant something. And like, you know, so you could say what you want, but like, he knew, I'm gonna invest some, even if I'm gonna fuck with Dusty and put him in the polka dots, I'm putting money into him, so I'm gonna push him towards the top of the card, and he did. And it's just like, but Vince forgot, you know, well, no, Carlito's this young rookie, and I gotta show everyone else in the locker room that I'm gonna break him down. No, because you had him beat Cena early on, and he was over with the crowd. Ride that shit, bro. Come on, like what? But from that point, I realized, like, God, Vince just doesn't want to.
You said this before, Jess. Vince was very determined after the likes of Stone Cold and The Rock and things that left on him. He's like, I'm not. I can't. It might even be somebody else at that point. He's like, I will not let one person control my business again. It's not gonna be about one guy. So that's part of it. He never really wanted somebody, and then at the end, I think he did with Cena. And by that point, everybody could see what was happening. And it was almost out of necessity that he had to ride Cena because of injuries. And Cena is very reliable, and he doesn't miss dates. And every kid that ever fucking wanted to make a wish room got it. It's like fucking over 600 children now or something. So he holds a world record, So he was Mr. Reliable. So he tried to go away from it, and then he realized that he couldn't, and then he forced Cena down, into all of our Krambits, right? So he's just it all phased out bad because he thought he can get away with just being a brand and not being, because when you're peddling, sports, even though you call it sport entertainment, somebody has to be on top. That's just how. And then you do two things: you create competition on your own, which nobody believes that, and then one of them's really bad anyway, and then on top of it, you don't really commit to it. You don't commit to it
for every one Michael Jordan you have, you will have the young Kobe's and the young LeBrons watching him and wanting to be him, and then you get them after. And I think Vince forgot that. People, if they didn't look at Hulk and be like, I want that stardom and I want that money, they certainly looked at Savage and Steamboat and whoever. And there was always this other generation because you allowed certain people to kind of rise above. You had your Jake Roberts and all those guys, but you did let Macho kind of rise above the clouds. Hulk was way above the clouds, but you let Macho rise above a little bit. You let the Warrior rise above a little bit. You had to put him. People might have gotten mad in the locker room that, Warrior barely has any fucking experience. Well, he's fucking, do you hear that? Did you hear that when he walked out there? So I got to use him, but I think Vince stopped doing that. It's like, did you hear that? Vince is like, yeah, but I haven't broken him yet and rebuilt him. Yeah. I don't know, Vince, but did you hear them? Yeah, I did, but they'll respond like that to whoever I tell them to respond like that to, and that's the way he is now.
If you were in real competition with real ratings against someone else, he wouldn't.
And
have said
who
that.
am I, some fucking dispatcher to a construction company to critique probably the greatest wrestling mind ever?
And it's always easier in hindsight, right?
But at the same time, like I know what I like as a fan, and I know the patterns, and I think when you go through what Vince went through, I do not blame him for having the feelings that he had. But I think enough years has passed to where he could look at that and be like, I probably should let someone rise above the rest and try it again. I don't know why you wouldn't. Like, you're so controlled now. You're a publicly traded company. You have $1 billion deals from Fox. Like,
so you don't think Brock is that guy that he allows that to do? Like Brock comes in and 10 title defenses.
Having a limited contract is very different than having someone who is in a common household name.
I mean, I get it, but that's what they do in boxing. I mean, those guys don't show up every week in box, right? The champions they're waiting every they're waiting every couple months to.
I mean,
you're Stone Cold every night type thing, though.
But the proof's in the pudding, though. Boxing is so bad now. But every now and then when
UFC's fading, I'm not gonna lie.
But when one Floyd Mayweather shows up, it spikes because people want to watch him. And when Manny Pacquiao will pop up, people will watch him. And it's the evidence is everywhere that you have to kind of get.
And Brock is definitely that anomaly, man. It's pretty interesting. But
I guess I don't know. I don't want to get off on a Brock tangent, but we'll talk about him later.
He's part of the
for sure.
He factors.
No,
in.
I'm saying he's an anomaly. He's in a position where like you can't put him in a particular box. You can't say, oh, he's part of this, he's part of that. And Brock is this whole other thing that we haven't even begun to describe, and we probably can't until it's all done. I don't know. We might look back on it more
I think
fondly.
without question, Brock is a Hall of Famer. I don't even think anybody can argue.
That's not even a question.
But you know what though? Brock is not a good face. He never has been.
No, he's not.
No, he's perfect. He's perfect doing what he's doing.
That guy who breaks through that glass ceiling or whatever, that has the Hulk magic or the Rock magic or the Austin magic, or even to a certain extent the Cena magic. I'll be honest.
Got to.
You gotta nurture when those guys come. You gotta fucking throw them through the glass ceiling. But Vince won't do it anymore, and I don't think he'll ever will until he steps down. I don't think we're ever going to see it again. Until
let's push these last bit of notes through, and then we'll kick on to some fun moments. But back to that ECW era, it was ultimately a failure. We know why, but you have to understand that it did produce stars towards the end of this era and into other areas. Like CM Punk got to work a little bit. John Morrison was big, and Miz got to develop. Now, obviously, Miz and Morrison are both back together again, and Morrison was able to travel all over the country at independent circuits, and then obviously some on TNA, and he's very impressive. He really knows what he's doing, and those guys got to shine there on that ECW moment. But then in the summer of 2008, the Ruthless Aggression era instantly comes to a halt because WWE wants to be more kid friendly and starts to brand themselves as PG to distance themselves from that Jerry Springer, edgy television that they had become known for, right? So it's just different. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that it works because you're trying to cater to the kids. I understand that.
And a little company called Fox came and gave them $1 billion.
Well, that was later, right?
No, it was. I mean, we're still technically in the PG era. They can lie and say they're not.
Oh, of course.
They want to. But I mean, but that's the track record. Fox has been watching them for like 3-4 years. And that was during the PG era period. It lured them in. And so how can you say Vince is wrong? It's like, we can bitch about this on our little podcast. So I will side with Vince on this in that sense. Like, he did this on purpose, and then he got $1 billion deal out of it. $1 billion. Vince is laughing because he's like, whatever. You guys, you bitch at me for not putting the one Hulk up front, or the one Rock, or the one Cena, or the one Austin, but I just got $1 billion deal. I got $1 billion deal when ratings are down, attendance is down. I don't know who's having the last laugh. I'm not entertained at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some moments, man. Let's see what we got in here. What do you guys?
The 2020 area.
What is this? What is this?
We had we're saying
Jess?
what 02 to 08 is 6 years. So in a 6-year span, like, we had all the stuff we talked about, but we had Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar left. He came in 01, right? I think it was right after Mania in 01. He came in, and then it was 02. It was 02. Sorry.
02, yeah, after
he came in. Yeah, he came in 02, shortly after Mania 18. And then he wins the title that summer. And then by 2004, WrestleMania, he left right after. He's done.
Yeah.
So wanted to be a fucking football player, and then won some heavyweight championship in some little league called the UFC. And but still, like, they put some stock in Lesnar. He was actually supposed to be the leader of that quote unquote Ruthless Aggression era. You can argue
that's where Vince lost faith.
Vince loved Lesnar. Vince loved Lesnar, and they really and with Heyman kind of writing stuff for him in the back and being his manager. And he, Heyman's the one who turned him face on SmackDown and had the best run with him as a face. It's so crazy in that little vacuum, this Ruthless Aggression vacuum, that he came and went. Like, it's weird. It's weird to think about.
Yeah.
He's such a big part of he's a big part of our wrestling lives now. But in this, Brock was only there for 2 years. So when he came back, I don't remember what year he came back and attacked Cena.
2012.
But the legend of Brock, that's how important Brock was or could have been. He was only around for 2.5
what year
years.
What year do we go to SummerSlam, Jess?
2013.
That's what I don't remember.
2013.
Yeah, it was like 13 or 14 in Staples Center where Brock just pummels Cena for like 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, it may have been 14.
And takes it. I thought it was 14.
No, yeah, it has to be 14. You're right.
Yeah. So 14. I mean, in my mind, that was some heinous shit. And
so forget the fact that Lesnar kind of flared up and then burnt out. Goldberg comes in.
Yeah, does the same thing.
Yeah, in 2003 on the Raw brand.
Oh my
and Triple
God,
H shits on him.
Moment, by the way.
Triple H shit again. No, he came from the competition. We have to break him down and build him up. Or you could let him beat everyone in 30 seconds like he did before and get super, super fucking over. And you know what I mean? It's just so weird, like the way they did stuff on the Raw side of things, which soured me.
This pummels into that really horrid WrestleMania match because everybody knew that they were both leaving and the crowd just took a giant shit on them the entire match.
Yeah, that was Mania. Yeah, 2004, Mania 20.
And then Stone Cold stunned both their asses.
And then I talked about the Cena and Batista getting crowned at WrestleMania 21. WrestleMania 21 to me was such a pivotal Mania, and they both got crowned. They were both rising here, both huge parts. Angle and Shawn Michaels. let's talk about some matches.
Has the same WrestleMania. Yeah.
Angle and Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 21 is a fucking piece of art, and like, yeah, it's like God. I mean, how many pieces of art did both those guys create?
Is it your? Is it on your monument, bro?
It has to be because
top 4.
Because I don't know about top 4 Mania match. Maybe. I mean, there's been a lot of good very good Mania matches. But
Sure.
I mean, like that. How many times have you put big names together and they're like oil and water? A famous episode that we did. But these
in the
two
archives
went together. They could easily have not. And I know I'm dealing with Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, so I know people are going to be like, Jess, come on. But I mean, come on.
You never know.
How many good big names have you seen and they didn't really live up to the
Everybody
hype?
thought Flair and Hogan was going to be a masterpiece, and it wasn't.
Yeah, these two guys at Mania 21 fucking tore the house down and stole the show. And top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time.
Easily, right?
I mean,
easily.
You could debate me and get it in the top 5 for sure. But I mean, top 10, Jesus.
How much can he stand? Unbelievable. Wow. Boy, only.
So by the way, speaking of this WrestleMania 21, this is the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21. So
all this during the Ruthless Aggression era that we're talking about here. It's crazy.
So those 3 items: Cena, Batista getting crowned. Actually, that's 4, right? And then Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, and then the Money in the Bank ladder match
Created by Jericho, right?
Where do you? Yeah, it was his idea. So that's what they say.
Yeah.
Where do you rank this WrestleMania? By the way, just curious.
I told you, it's in my top 5.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say like top 3.
No,
just right outside of it.
Yeah, I would say top 5, but not top 3.
Because you got what 17 and 19, and what is it?
I would say in my top 3. I mean, I'm not going to rank them right now, but in my top 3, my top 3 is 3, 17, and 19 in no particular order. I wouldn't put 19. I wouldn't put 19 as my number 1 though. So it would be between 3 and 17 for my number 1.
Yeah, it's not terrible. That's not a terrible choice. So 21's like your number 4, probably more than likely.
4 or 5.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty impressive when you think about it.
WrestleMania 30 was right up there.
WrestleMania
31 was fantastic. WrestleMania 28 was fantastic. There's so many.
That's what I'm saying. To put 21 in that kind of level, it shows you.
I love 21, and then because for selfish reasons.
That's right.
Hulk was in the Hall of Fame in 21. Yeah. if you like Hulk Hogan and his beer can penis, go back and watch WrestleMania 21. When he goes out there and does a little thing and he runs Hassan off,
brother,
saves Eugene. The celebration that Hulk has with that crowd, the celebration that Hulk has with that crowd in the Staples Center, it lasts for like 5 solid minutes, which is a long time when you think about it. And that crowd was giving him some pops that I was like, wow, I don't even. 05 Hulk was way over the hill, at that point. But the fact that he got put in the Hall of Fame the night before, and go back and just watch it for that, and then you have everything that Dave just said. The first Money in the Bank ladder match, Cena and Batista being crowned, Angle, Shawn, Jesus Christ, and this is all in the middle of the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's also a little match over here with Shawn Michaels and Shelton Benjamin in 05.
Jesus, that Raw match. Holy shit.
Golden Rush tournament.
God.
Athleticism, unbelievable, world-class athleticism by the former University of Minnesota. No, Shawn, he didn't go. Shawn landing on his feet. Oh, my God in heaven. The sweet chin music. It is academic.
Here's your winner, the Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah, for those you don't know about, that was on May 2nd, 2005 on Raw.
2 months after WrestleMania 21. 2 months after WrestleMania 21.
Yeah, you need to go find that match and just watch it.
The ending is super famous, but that entire match, it just showed how fucking good Shelton was. And how do you not? This is my part of the reason why, Jess, how come you don't think fondly of because they fumbled people like Shelton. He was given to you on a silver platter. I mean, the guy did spots in ladder matches, especially, that you were like, what the fuck did he just do? What the fuck are we watching? And then that ending sequence where Michael super kicks him is like, what the fuck? The whole match was genius from beginning to end. And it was like, what else do you need from Shelton Benjamin, for fuck's sake? lean on your creative department to put some fucking effort instead of bringing his mom down to the ring, which is what they ended up doing. Not his actual mom, but I mean, like, yeah, he came down with his quote unquote mom. And I'm like, what? That's the best you can do for this guy that can jump like without even trying. We think Brock's impressive from going from the floor, jumping to the apron. If Shelton wanted to, he could jump from the floor to the first rope, the first buckle, the third buckle. Not the top rope, but the third. That's how good he was. And he would do shit like that where I think the Royal Rumble that year when he ran in there, he just ran in and jumped in one leap onto the fucking top rope. He jumped in the ring, ran across, jumped on the top rope, and belly to bellied someone off it. And I'm like, in one fluid motion, I'm like, this guy has everything that you want. Not to mention he was part of the world's greatest tag team before that. But yeah, like I'm like, how can you miss with this guy? I know I'm stammering everywhere.
Well, he also all these Money in the Bank matches. They made sure he was a part of them because he would just make them absolutely electrifying.
And the best thing they could do to develop his character is we'll put his mom out there with them. Fucking wow, like find something up, turn him heel, and give him if you need someone to talk to for him because you don't feel he can talk, fair enough. Then turn him heel and put him with the manager that can be his mouthpiece. Do not put him with his mama. What are you doing? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, God damn it.
And to move on that sour note, because Shelton's just a badass. We love him. We also have the rise of Evolution and a young man in the name of Randy Orton. It's pretty. It's not my horseman. I'm not going to say that.
And another match at WrestleMania 21. Randy Orton against the goddamn Undertaker. Yeah, that was a fantastic match. One of his best streak matches ever.
Yeah, Randy Orton is
one of my favorite
just
matches.
Jesus. How is WrestleMania 21 night? It's my new number one. No, I'm kidding.
You're not. You won't say that. You won't say that. But that's the thing. So the Evolution, for those of you that don't know,
Evolution was awesome.
You've been living under a rock for a while. This was Flair's like second coming of his horsemen, outside of WCW. So you've got Ric Flair, you got Triple H, you got Batista, you got Randy Orton. Randy Orton's the young buck, Batista's the muscle. Triple H is kind of like the manipulator, and Ric Flair's kind of like he's the king. He's the old guy, but he runs it. He's gonna run it. And this, in my opinion, was one of the coolest stables that I can remember. I know a lot of people don't give it a lot of praise, but I think it was a lot better than people remember. And there's a great scene here where Randy does win the world title, and they basically churn on him. So Evolution was this big whole thing just to churn on Randy and churn Randy face right away. And I thought it was, I thought it was very
another problem that I had with Raw because they botched the shit out of that.
It could have been a lot better. Yeah.
Well, it should. First of all, you don't turn someone face by having the heels dump him. In the sense of, I know they did that with Sting in 1990, but that's because Sting won a round robin tournament when he was part of the Four Horsemen that granted him a shot at the world champion, which was Ric Flair.
And the Horsemen don't wrestle.
Yeah, the Horsemen's like, no, the whole point of this group is to protect Flair as champion. And Sting's like, bullshit, I'm young, I'm hungry, I want a rematch from you from 2 years ago, Clash of the Champion, I can beat you now. And Flair's like, no. So they kicked him out. That's a heelish thing to do. They kick Randy Orton out. He wins the title from Benoit at SummerSlam 04. He becomes the youngest WWE, well, he's World Heavyweight Champion at this point. He becomes the youngest guy to win a top title, the World Heavyweight title. And so instead of them keeping him heel and running Evolution and turning Triple H face, which would have worked because Triple H has the gumption, he has the the tenure to do that, and he could still lose to Orton, and it wouldn't hurt Triple H because he's Triple H. Like, they didn't. They did the whole storyline where Triple H got jealous of him, and they turned on him, and so it made Orton look like they just dumped him for no. Orton wasn't acting like he was going to break up. If I'm not mistaken, right? Orton wasn't acting like he was going to leave.
No, they put him on his shoulders.
Yeah,
they were like celebrating
and then
him.
Triple H looks at him and gives a thumbs down, and then you know who's really in charge. Obviously, it's Triple H at this point, right? And Flair's just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Everything changes at that point. I personally, this is where I might disagree with Jess a little bit. I don't disagree with him much on this stuff, but I thought that this was a nice little twist because Orton's a champion, and now this heel faction's going after him, which you wouldn't expect, and it happens right away. I think they could have built it up for a while after, maybe a few hours later.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with that theory.
Yeah, I personally liked it because I was like, oh damn, now.
But
Randy
what
has
happened
his
was
own,
I think Triple H beat him within like a month.
Yeah,
like,
he
and
got
won
it
the
back.
title,
He got
and
it
Orton
quick.
never got it back, and like they just shit on him, and I'm like, what are you
fell
doing?
flat.
Like, yeah.
Well, could we also
wasn't
argue
that-
that some of that was on Orton stuff in the back?
It could be,
Acting up.
but here's my thing.
Pooping in bags.
I'm not saying you should allow somebody to run roughshot in the back and
Which he didn't.
be a cancer, but at the same time, like, how many fucking different personalities did they have in the 80s when they brought people in?
I get it.
People
I get
were
it.
Shawn Michaels would tell Vince to fuck off loudly in front of everybody, and Vince is like, "Well, Michaels is my guy. Michaels is my guy." Like, I mean, it's just like, God, like, you know, like, I don't understand. Like, Randy Orton was immature, yes. But at the same time, like, there's just ways you can fix that behind the scenes without it affecting the storylines. When you tell us this guy's important, and then all of a sudden it stops being important, and you just job him out, and we're like, what happened? Well, it's because behind the scenes he's shit in someone's bag. Okay, that does sound horrible, and you shouldn't have done that. But you want us to follow the storylines in front of the camera, right? So if you're going to tell me one story and then shit on me a month later because you're like, well, this guy had a bad attitude, I don't care. I don't that video, that audio
Just
that
keep
leaked
him
of
in.
Christian Bale, at
Play it up.
Terminator, going like, oh, good for you. Like, I mean,
Good
like, I
for
didn't
you.
want. Why did you have to do that? Like, I don't care what he's like. I don't care that Joaquin Phoenix was mean to people behind the scenes. I just like the fact that the Joker
was a great Joker.
He was a great Joker, right? Like, and I'm not saying he should abuse people, which he didn't. He was just in character. He's a method actor, right? And so, like, I'm not saying Orton was a
Yeah, he
method
steps
actor
on your
because
reels.
I didn't know that the character Randy Orton loves shitting in bags. But I mean, my point is like, I liked the Joker performance, right? And that's all I care about. I'm not judging that performance, but he was kind of a dick to the makeup people. I don't care.
No.
Like, I don't care. So stop Orton from shitting in bags, punish him, fine him a lot of money if you want to. That's totally fine. But that is your deal to do behind the scenes. When you're telling me a story, he's the youngest heavyweight champion, he's this, he's that, he did, blah, blah, you gotta fucking put some value in him and write him out because you're telling me the story that I need to be invested in him. Then when you have the boring old Triple H heel beat him a month later, after you just went through the whole thing of having him beat Benoit and having him be the youngest champion, and then H beats him, and then Orton's just another face, and they fade him out after that. Then he returns heel and kind of reinvents himself. And, we see the Orton that we saw at Mania 21 against Taker. I just don't get it sometimes. And I think it derails the company more than they know, like from a fan standpoint. I could be wrong on that, but that's my take from that whole Orton beginning era. But it doesn't dismiss the fact that Evolution and Orton, that rise, was a huge part of the Ruthless Aggression era, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's fun stuff. I mean, and I think we saw some of the best of Randy at that point, and I think sometimes we see flashes of Randy again, but it's just, I feel like he was, you're at once again, someone's at the crest of the wave, and Randy just kind of missed that overall push. I mean, he's amazing in there. We love what he does, but it's almost like he's bored. Like there's nothing to do. It's I'll go out, I'll pretend I'll pretend I'm hurt and do something fun for a night and see how it works. Fuck it, I'll try it. It's what he did. I don't know. I can't explain Randy anymore. It's so hard because I love what he does, and I find everything he does entertaining in there, whether it's mic work or in ring work. But we never got to a level we thought we'd see with him.
I know what, and I agree with what you said, and I felt that way for a long time. But I had to stop myself for a second, and over the last couple of months, I've thought about Orton a lot for some odd reason, and I was like, you know what? No, he's fine, because I always say when people are like, man, Jake should have been world champion, Mr. Perfect should have been world champion, Rude should have been world champion, and I'm like, no, they shouldn't have. They were fine.
They're right where they needed to be.
I think Orton's lucky enough in the era of hot potato champions that he even won the title half as much as he won it. He doesn't need to. And now I'm thinking like, God, no, like, why am I putting that pressure on Orton? Maybe he was never designed to be The Rock or this Austin, or, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he wasn't. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But I think for a long time, they kept trying to tell us that he was. For example, that first title that he won from Benoit, and then they ripped it away real quick because he's not ready. I'm like, well, then don't do it to begin with. Like, you knew what he was like before you put the title on him. His behavior didn't change.
Well, so it's the same thing. He's not ready, but Brock was. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he wasn't Christian behind the scenes going and getting collections on the collection plate. And then once he won the title, he's like, where's the bag I can shit in? No, like he was Orton before that and they knew who he was and they did it anyway. And then afterwards they're like, well, behind the scenes, he's a problem. I'm like, he was the same problem before you put the belt on him. You knew what you were doing. So either commit to it in front of the camera and keep telling me that story and don't interrupt it, or don't do it to begin with. It's fine if you don't. If Orton never won the title, it would have been fine. We would still be in the same place we are today. Let's be honest, we would have.
Yeah, well, sure.
Maybe the actual first time that he won it, if he never won it in 04, would have been a huge deal. And 2 years later or 3 years later, and we could be like, isn't it crazy that Orton was the next coming? He was the next Austin, or he was the next, you know what I mean? We could be saying that right now. But because they're so hell-bent sometimes on like, no, if they don't do this behind the scenes, they're not ready. Well, then don't even put them in position to be ready until you know behind the scenes they're good, right? Like, don't put someone that you know is an issue behind the scenes, Shawn Michaels, and then put the title on him and then be like, what a fucking immature dick he is as champion. I'm shocked. Really? You're shocked? Because he did weird shit before that. He lost his smile before that. So I don't understand why you're so shocked at this point. Like, smile, it's weird. Yeah, it's weird. So anyway, I know I'm rambling on, but anyway. We got one more guy that Dave loves. Here.
Yeah.
Dave loves this.
Edge wins the WWE title in January at New Year's Revolution 2006.
That was Edge's. To me, that's Edge's coming out party. He defined his heel character there. I distinctly remember him winning the title, and then on Raw the next night, we have footage of Lita and Edge leaving the building, like where the wrestlers pull their cars into the back of the arena, and Edge is walking out, and I distinctly remember this interview, and he was cutting heel promo about how screw Cena basically or whatever. I cashed my Money in the Bank, whatever, and he turns around and there's like a crowd on the guardrail, like watching the rental cars coming in and out, and he looks up at them and he holds up the belt. He's like, "There you go, you sons of bitches, you stupid sons of bitches!" Like, I laughed so fucking hard, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and they did such great stuff as the live sex celebration show with Lita. That was fantastic. And Cena came out and got a massive pop, and because he put the heel in his place and fucking Edge in his boxers and.
This show may just get better. Wait a minute. His last sight of New Year's Revolution, that Edge metal briefcase and got himself. Oh my God! Come on. Well, Edge has a. Come on. What are you doing? Hey, oh. Come on. Edge. Oh. Don't do it. No. Oh my God. Hey, come on. We need some help out here. No, it's John Cena. John Cena going after the new WWE champion. One edge, hopefully right out of the ring, but he's not really in a position. Hiding under the covers, and is he smart? Come on, you're getting a personal invitation, Edge. Lead us fight. That's not Royal Rumble.
Good shit, so there's positive stuff coming out of this Ruthless Aggression era, but for some odd reason, I look back on it now, like I said in the beginning, fondly, but at the time I remember going like, I feel you guys are right there, but you just won't take the top off the champagne. You won't let it pop because Vince is like, nope. I gotta control it. No. It's the brand. It's not anybody, one person. It's the brand. And if it is gonna be one person, it's squeaky clean Cena. It's squeaky clean. He's so clean, and he's got to come out. And it's just, I don't know. It's weird. I look back now and I really enjoy the Ruthless Aggression era. I really do. But at the time I was like, why wouldn't you let it explode? Like it could be so good. It could be so much better than it was.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, they had all the talent in the world, and they tried to split it up. It's just like you said. Sometimes you don't know what to do when no one's chasing you, and obviously the viewers don't know what to do when there's not competition. So,
what about how badass Mark Henry was back then?
Well, that's
Badass
another.
heel.
That's another freaking.
But I don't know
creation
when did Henry do that promo with Cena? I think that was after Ruthless Aggression, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
that was
fucking.
But he was
a badass heel.
the best work of him,
On
the best
SmackDown,
work
like
of Big
06,
Show.
07
Yeah,
and shit.
that was all freaking Heyman.
Yeah, that's true.
That's all Heyman working those guys. I mean,
The Hall of Pain.
nobody made big men better than Paul Heyman at times, with the exception of Andre. Andre kind of was just doing it himself, but there's a few big men that actually had work like that. Vader's another one. Bam Bam is probably underrated, but those big men would have had nothing to stand on. He might have turned a few of those big men into Hall of Famers. Mark Henry shouldn't have been one, but you could argue that time in the Ruthless Aggression era with Heyman puts him in there. So there's things like that are really good about it, and people that wouldn't normally have gotten a nod got a decent nod and a decent work. So it's funny what Heyman can get out of people. I think people really underestimate that about.
I think
about Paul.
mainly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm mainly frown-ish on the Ruthless Aggression era, because I feel there's no reason the first brand extension should have failed. When you look back and look at all the names and look at everything,
it's crazy.
I don't understand how it failed. They just became impatient, I think, and they just gave up, and I don't know why.
They started combining
And it's weird. It's really weird. When you look back at all the talent, and how the fuck did the first brand extension fail? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm legitimately asking it. I don't know how it could. How in the world could it have failed?
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? Any other fond memories you have? Cuz I think you had some listed there.
Yeah, Cuz has got some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark Henry obviously was one of them. I enjoyed Hogan and Taker during that era. Remember when the feud when
you might be the only one.
I loved it. Remember when he dragged Hogan on the bike?
Yeah, on the motorcycle, yeah.
No, brother. What about Flair and Edge though?
Flair, well, a lot of stuff. Yeah, Flair's IC title run. That's a good point. Flair's IC title run was really good. Flair's retirement, I think, came within that era, right?
Actually,
maybe not. Maybe he might have came after.
You know what I'm trying to remember also, and I can't remember the same time frame. Excuse me if it wasn't when Edge created "You Suck" and this stuff about he had the car. Yeah, he's like, look at this picture. What do you think? And he's like, oh, this,
Oh yeah, Angle shaving his head or getting his head shaved by Edge and all that. That was really good. That was
a really good feud. But like the cue cards in the back with Edge and Angle.
I know this is really super lame, but like the whole 3-minute warning with Bischoff, was really good. Like
wedding,
they were killing
great.
The wedding, the wedding was it didn't have the direction it should have had, but the wedding to me, it got like that Attitude Era pop. When Bischoff took off that prosthetic Mac, and he's like, "Did somebody say 3 minutes?" That crowd popped legitly.
Yes,
and like it was awesome.
Amazing.
I was like, "Wow!" It was the whole wedding was misguided, and it was just a stupid attempt to show that they were okay with gay people, but they didn't do it right. They just sort of did it like. In the end, the people that were supposed to be gay getting married were like, "No, we're not gay. We're not." It's like okay. You lead us in, you lead the whole country in, they did huge advertising for that wedding, and it was a big deal, and like bring it's going to be a gay wedding and all this stuff, and then you bring them in only to have the principals go, "Oh no, we're not gay. That would be silly." Like, no, the whole angle was supposed to be that you get people to accept that. Like, it's just weird the way they did it. Like, they didn't know what they were doing, and they did it. But in that vacuum, in that moment, Bischoff got a massive pop when people realized that he did so good in that makeup. Like, you just didn't like. I didn't even know it was him. And then he's like, whether the marriage lasts 3 years, 3 months, or 3 minutes. And then he stopped and he stood up straight because he was all crinkled over like an old man. But he stood up. He's like, wait a minute. Did I just hear myself say 3 minutes? And the whole fucking place went nuts. And like, he took the mask off or the prosthetics. And I mean, people went nuts. I was like, wow. Like, that whole moment, I was like, I felt great. That pop. And I was like, that reminded me so much of the Attitude Era. That was so crazy.
Wait a minute. Did I just hear myself say minutes.
I think that's a perfect way to end this session, man. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Click on Linktree. Catch us on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and was it Twitcher?
Stitcher.
Stitcher.
Did Dave say Stitcher? I take my mask off.
All right. This is Dave Cuz.
Huh?
Chess with the O.W.P. Have a good one.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that episode of our wrestling podcast, the Ruthless Aggression Era. Great moments and great matches from that era. And, you know, there was a few moments and matches that we actually forgot to go over. One of the matches that I wanted to mention was a number one contendership match for the WWE Championship on SmackDown, December 5th, 2002. It was Angle versus Edge versus Eddie versus Benoit. If you want to talk about the wrestling from that era, I don't think there's any four guys better than that can show you exactly how great the wrestling from that era was. Go back and watch that match, SmackDown, December 5th, 2002. Another one, Edge versus Jericho in the main event in a steel cage. That's from the July 25th edition of SmackDown 2002 as well. And, you know, 2002 was just the year that kept on giving as far as in-ring action goes. On Raw, October 7th, 2002, you actually had TLC 4. This is where Kane defended the tag team titles by himself because Hurricane was attacked by Triple H and Ric Flair earlier on in the night. And this was also when they did the Raw Roulette. So they got the, spin the wheels that night, throughout the night for stipulations for matches and everything. But because the Hardys were split because of the brand split, Bubba and Devon were split, and Christian didn't have a partner, Bischoff actually allowed Jeff Hardy and Bubba and Christian each to pick their own partners. So it was Kane defending the tag titles versus RVD and Jeff Hardy, Bubba and Spike, Y2J, and Christian. Great match, great installment to the TLC matches. The first TLC on Raw. It was a great match. I suggest you go back and watch it. All those matches from the Ruthless Aggression era. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast. And I just wanted to remind everyone, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and now we are proud to announce that you can also find us on iHeart Radio. That's right. Our wrestling podcast is now available on iHeart Radio. This is Cuz with Our Wrestling Podcast. See you next time.